My name is Emily Hart. I was 6 when it happened. I grew up in a small town called Cedar Hollow in Missouri. Our house sat back from the road. Behind our yard there was a pond. It was not big. The water was brown and full of weeds. In summer it smelled like warm dirt and green things. The pond was where the kids went to play. It felt like the whole world when you were small. That day the heat pressed on the roof. My mother said, "Go play, but don't go too far." She had a towel over her shoulder. My cousin Luke was at the pond with his friends. He was 10 and he liked to show off. I wanted to show him I could be brave. I put on my tiny swimsuit. I ran down the yard with bare feet. The grass was warm under my toes. The sun made my hair stick to my neck. I felt grown up and light. I held a little piece of wood I found near the bank. It was flat and smooth. I thought it would be my boat. The bank was shallow at first. I walked in and the water was cool. It felt good on my hot legs. I kept my feet on the mud where it was safe. I watched Luke jump and splash. He laughed and yelled to the other boys. I wanted to be brave. I wanted them to clap for me. I pushed off with my little feet and put the wood under my chest. The board kept me from sinking at first. I paddled with my hands. For a moment I felt like a pirate, floating away. My heart beat fast with excitement. I called, "Look at me." Luke waved without stopping. Then the board slipped. I remember that sound like a small gasp. 1 second the wood was under me. The next it was gone. My feet could not reach the bottom. It happened so quick. I panicked and kicked. My arms flailed. The water closed over my head. It tasted like mud and cold metal. I gulped and it filled my mouth. My throat burned. I tried to scream but no sound came out. It was dark and heavy. My legs stopped moving the way I wanted. Fear rose in me like a big wave. I remember the mud catching at my toes and nothing holding me. I remember thinking, "This is it. I will go down." I kept kicking. I tried to grab the grasses at the bank. My hands hit muck and slippery plants. My lungs burned. My vision blurred. The pond around me turned into a swirl of brown. It felt like falling into a very soft hole that would not let go. I could not tell up from down. The world became thick and slow. Then something strange happened. I felt a tug, but not from the water. It felt like a pull from inside my chest. A part of me felt loose, like a small toy that came away from my hand. For a moment I was both under the water and not under the water. I could still feel the cold, wet weight on my skin. At the same time, I was very calm. I felt as if I had stepped out of my small body and stood watching myself. It was like sitting on a chair and watching a replay of a game you played. I could see the pond from above. I could see my mother's white shirt as she walked toward the back door. I saw the laundry basket on the porch. I watched Luke on the bank. They looked small and far, like toys. I could feel my mother's mood. I could not hear her words, but I felt how her hands moved, how she folded the towels. Her calm was a soft blanket I could see in colors. It surprised me. I thought, how can I feel her without hearing her? I was inside something larger than sound. Then the picture shifted. I was pulled back into the water like a rubber band snapping. The cold pain came back. My throat burned again. I remember thinking, I am so tired of fighting. I do not have the strength to swim. But inside that tiredness was a quiet place. It was not fear. It was like a small warm room inside my chest. I had a thought I had never had before. Maybe this is not the end. The pond felt strange. Not only dangerous, I could not explain it, but a small voice told me to be still. My limbs grew heavy, and my world slowed to the rhythm of my breath. I could feel 2 worlds, the one where my body sank and the one where something else lifted. I did not know the name of that lifting. I only knew I felt a part of me float free for a moment, like a small white feather rising above the water. I remember thinking of my mother folding the towel. I remembered my brother taking the board from me once, and laughing. I remembered the sound of the parade of frogs beside the reeds. All these small things came up like pictures on a wall. Even in that strange floaty space, I could remember being tiny and loved in little ways. And that memory warmed me in a way the sun could not. It was the first time I felt something that would stay with me for a long time. A soft light at the edge of a very dark place. The next moment, everything went quiet. There was no splashing, no water sound, no pain, only stillness. I wasn't fighting anymore. The panic that had filled every corner of my chest was gone, like it had never been there. The burning in my throat stopped, and I realized I was no longer struggling to breathe. It was the strangest feeling, as if the part of me that needed air had stayed behind, and the part that was me had slipped free. I could see the water all around me, but it wasn't brown anymore. It shimmered, glowing faint green and gold, like sunlight filtered through 1,000 leaves. The mud, the weeds, the cold, everything that had frightened me just seconds ago was gone. Instead, I felt warmth. I looked at my hands, and they weren't quite hands anymore. They glowed faintly, like the edges of a candle flame, and I remember thinking, oh, this feels familiar. Not in a way I could explain, but deep down, I somehow knew this place. Then something strange happened. The world around me changed again, and I was no longer in the pond. I was standing in our kitchen near the ceiling, looking down at my mom. She was at the counter, making sandwiches for me and Luke. She was humming, calm, peaceful, unaware that outside her daughter was drowning. I didn't hear her song, but I felt it. It was like her thoughts had colors. Her emotions had shape. She was thinking about the weather, the bread, and how she needed to remind Luke not to track mud in again. I felt her love, like a warmth spreading through the air. It wasn't made of words, it was knowing. Then it faded. I blinked, though I wasn't sure if I even had eyes, and suddenly I was back underwater. Only now, the light around me was alive. It rippled and pulsed, forming soft green waves. The pain didn't return. My lungs didn't hurt. It was peaceful again, and from somewhere far away I heard a sound, not through my ears, but through my whole being. It was like someone calling gently through water. Emily. The voice was young and kind. I looked around, but there was no one there, just that glowing water, and the soft hum that filled the space between moments. Then I saw movement ahead of me, a small figure in the water. At first, I thought it was another child. She had long, light hair that floated around her, like silk. But then I noticed her skin. It shimmered faintly, like light seen through glass. She smiled at me, and though I didn't see her lips move, I heard her voice inside my mind. She said, "You're okay now." Her words felt like a wave of warmth that spread through my whole body. I wanted to ask who she was, but before I could, she raised her hand and pointed upward. I looked above me, and the pond ceiling wasn't dark anymore. It was glowing, pure white, with streaks of green and gold, like sunlight on water. Then she said softly, "You're not supposed to be here yet." I remember frowning. I didn't understand. I was 6. What did "not supposed to" even mean? She just smiled again, calm and kind. Her face looked familiar somehow, though I couldn't place where I'd seen her before. Maybe she reminded me of the drawings my mom used to show me in church, the ones of angels, but she wasn't scary, and she didn't have wings. She looked like a friend, someone I'd always known. "I want to go home," I said, and she answered, "You will, but not yet." Her hand touched mine. It wasn't cold or warm, it just was, like touching pure comfort. I didn't understand it then, but now, I think it was her way of helping me feel safe. Then she stepped back, and the world started to move again. The colors began to swirl together. Greens, whites, golds, spinning faster and faster, until everything around me became a soft blur. I felt myself rising, like something gentle was pulling me toward the light above. There was no fear, no struggle, just peace. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered again, not hers this time, but something greater, older, softer. "Be still. You are loved." I didn't know what it meant, but I believed it, because in that moment, I wasn't drowning anymore. I was floating, not in water, but in love itself. The light pulled me gently upward, but not toward the surface I knew. It wasn't like breaking through water into air. It felt like drifting through layers of soft silk, each one brighter and more alive than the last. I wasn't scared, not even a little. That surprised me. When you're 6 years old, even thunder makes you hide under a blanket. But this light, was warm, calm, and full of something that felt like kindness. I could see everything now, but it was all different. The pond wasn't muddy anymore. It was clear and glowing, and there were soft ripples of light moving in patterns I couldn't explain. It was like the water itself was alive, breathing with me. I could see every pebble at the bottom, every weed, every bubble, but they weren't ugly. Everything shimmered as if painted with starlight. It felt like I had been blind all my life and was finally seeing things as they truly were. Then I noticed something, moving near the bottom of the pond. At first, I thought it was a reflection, but no. It was a person, a girl. She looked about 8 or 9. Her hair floated around her face, long and silver golden, glowing faintly in the green light. Her dress, or maybe it wasn't a dress, just light-shaped like fabric, waved around her like gentle smoke. She smiled at me, and I knew instantly that she wasn't dangerous. In fact, she felt like the safest thing I had ever known. I didn't speak with my mouth, but she heard me anyway. I asked, "Who are you?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me with eyes that seemed older than time, soft and full of knowing. Finally, she said, "I'm a friend." Her voice wasn't loud, but it echoed inside me like music I'd always known but forgotten the words to. I tried to look at my hands again. They weren't glowing as bright as hers, but they weren't normal either. I realized I didn't feel heavy anymore. No heartbeat, no breath, no pain. It was like being made of light, but still me. "Where am I?" I asked. The girl tilted her head, almost smiling. "Somewhere between there and home." Her words confused me. "What's home?" She pointed upward, though I couldn't tell which direction was up anymore. "The place where you came from before you were born," she said softly. I didn't understand, but I felt like I should. It sounded right, even if I couldn't explain why. Then she began to walk, if you could call it that, toward the bottom of the pond. I followed, though my feet never touched anything. When we reached the bottom, it wasn't dark or dirty like before. It was glowing green, like soft moss under sunlight. And there, among the stones, I saw something incredible. Flowers, real flowers, growing underwater, purple, blue, and pink, bending gently as if in a breeze. They looked alive, but not like normal plants. They shimmered, each petal glowed faintly, and when I looked closer, I could see tiny sparks of light floating off them, rising like bubbles. The girl knelt beside them. She touched one with her hand. When she did, the flower brightened, and I could feel it, not with my fingers, but in my heart. It was like the flower was sharing its happiness with me. Then the girl looked up at me and said, "Everything alive remembers love, that's why it glows." Her words stayed inside me. Even now, I remember them clearly. At that moment, I didn't know what she meant, but I felt something awaken inside, something peaceful, like I had always been loved, even before I was born. And even though I was still a child, that thought made me feel safe. I wanted to stay there forever. But the girl stood up and looked toward the surface. Though the surface wasn't really water anymore, it was a ceiling of light, rippling and calling softly. "It's time," she said. "Time for what?" I asked. "You have to see," she whispered. Her hand touched mine again, and I felt a rush, like a warm breeze, pushing through my chest. The world around us shimmered, and the light grew brighter, turning white. And then, everything changed again. I wasn't in the pond anymore. I was above it, floating high, near the treetops. Below me, I could see the world I had left behind. The pond glowed faintly beneath the sun, the same place where I had drowned. But now it looked small, almost like a puddle. I could see my cousin Luke running toward the house, shouting. I could see my mom drop the towel in the yard and start to run too. And for the first time, I understood what had happened. My body was still down there, but I wasn't. The girl's voice echoed beside me, softer now, fading. You see, you were never lost. You were only remembering. Then she was gone. The light around me pulsed once more, and the sky above turned golden. I felt something huge. Love, presence, power, wrapping around me, like a blanket. It wasn't the girl anymore. It was something greater, like the very heart of everything whispering without words. You are safe, little one. You are loved, always. The light around me grew brighter until it wasn't just light anymore. It felt alive. It hummed softly, like a song I couldn't quite remember but somehow knew every note of. I was floating high above the pond now, above the trees, and the air itself shimmered with gold. It wasn't hot or cold. It was perfect. Everything around me glowed. Yet, it didn't hurt my eyes. I felt light as air, and peaceful in a way I didn't think was possible. Below, I could see my mom kneeling at the edge of the pond, her hands pressed to her mouth. Luke was standing beside her, crying. Their voices didn't reach me, but I could feel what they felt. The fear, the panic, the guilt. It hit me like a soft wave. Not painful, but deep. I wanted to tell them I was okay. I wanted to yell, I'm right here. But no matter how much I tried, they couldn't see or hear me. Then I felt a presence beside me. I didn't see her appear. She was just there. A woman surrounded by soft white light. Her shape shimmered gently. Her face calm, kind. Her gown looked like it was made from mist and moonlight. When I looked at her, I didn't feel fear. Instead, I felt like I'd finally come home. Her eyes were soft, filled with something more than love. Something eternal. I asked, "Are you an angel?" She smiled, and even though her lips didn't move, her answer filled the air around me. She said, "I am someone who remembers you." Her voice wasn't sound. It was like warmth that spoke directly to my heart. I didn't understand what she meant, but I didn't need to. Her presence alone made everything make sense. I looked down again. My mom was trying to lift me from the water, her hands trembling. I could feel her thoughts even though she didn't speak. Please, not my baby. Please God, not my little girl. The angel, or whatever she was, placed a hand on my shoulder. Her touch was pure light, yet it felt like a hug. She said, "She's not praying for herself. She's trading her strength for yours." I didn't know what that meant, but I could feel something inside me move, like a thread connecting us. My mom's love pulling at my spirit. "Can I go to her?" I asked. The angel shook her head gently. "Not yet. There's something you must understand first." Then, with a sweep of her hand, the sky opened up. It wasn't like clouds moving. It was like the air itself parted, and through it I could see a light brighter than anything I'd ever imagined. It wasn't white. It was every color, yet none of them. Something beyond words. I felt drawn to it. It was the kind of beauty that made your heart ache. The kind of peace that made you want to stay forever. The angel looked at me and said softly, "That is where we come from. That is home." Her words filled me with warmth, but also sadness, because even though I wanted to go there, something inside me whispered, "Not yet." Then she showed me something, not with pictures, but with feeling. It was as if a story unfolded inside my heart. I saw my family, not just as they were, but as they would be. I saw my mom sitting by the pond years later, older, still thinking of me. I saw Luke grown up, holding his own child, teaching her to swim. I saw a tiny girl who looked just like me, laughing, alive, and I realized that love never stops. It just changes shape. Tears filled my eyes, though I wasn't sure if I even had eyes anymore. The angel smiled and said, "You see now, nothing is ever lost, not even you." Her words wrapped around me like soft music, and for the first time, I understood. Death wasn't an ending, it was a door, and love was what waited on both sides. But then the angel looked down, and I followed her gaze. My body lay still beside the pond. My mom's tears fell onto my face, and my cousin was shaking me, yelling my name. The angel's light began to fade. She said, "You must decide. You can stay here in peace, or go back and grow in love. I hesitated. The light above called to me, promising comfort, beauty, forever. But when I looked at my mom, broken and weeping, I felt that same pull, the thread of love tugging me back. I want to go back, I whispered. The angel nodded, her smile gentle. Then go. And remember this, every time you feel alone, I am near. Her hand touched my forehead, and everything turned bright, blinding. It felt like falling and flying at the same time. The light roared around me like a warm storm, and I heard one last whisper fade into the glow. Love is the bridge between every world. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was not back in my body yet. I was still in that golden space between worlds, floating somewhere that felt endless and soft. The light was dimmer now, but still alive, pulsing gently, like a heartbeat that belonged to the universe. The angel was gone, but her presence lingered, like the smell of flowers after someone leaves the room. I turned slowly, trying to understand where I was. There were shapes all around me, faint outlines of people, glowing softly, standing in a circle far away. They weren't solid. They looked like light gathered into human form. Each figure seemed to shine with its own color. Soft blues, pale pinks, golds. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I felt they were watching me with kindness. I felt small, but not afraid. It was like being the littlest child in a room full of people who loved me and wanted to help me understand something important. Then, in the middle of that circle, a brighter light appeared. It wasn't harsh or blinding, just pure. I knew without being told that this light was where everything began and where everything returned. It wasn't just around me. It was inside me too. It felt like home, the real one, the one I came from before I was ever born. A voice came from the center of that light. It wasn't male or female, young or old. It was everything all at once. It said Emily, just my name. But when I heard it, I felt seen in a way I never had before. Every memory, every tiny piece of who I was, all of it was known. There were no secrets here, the voice said. You have seen what love is. Now you must choose what to do with it. I didn't understand what that meant, so I said, I don't want to go back. It's so beautiful here. The light pulsed gently, like a calm wave. You can stay, it said. But if you do, you will not grow. You came to learn how to love through living. Those words settled in me. I thought about my mom's face, the way she used to tuck me in, how her hands smelled like soap and sunshine. I thought about Luke, who always teased me but never meant any harm. And suddenly I missed them. Not with sadness, but with love so strong it ached. I realized that love didn't belong only here, in this beautiful place. It also belonged down there, in the messy, noisy world I had left behind. I said softly, but it hurts there. The light answered, yes. That is how you learn to recognize joy. Without pain, there is no choice. And without choice, there is no love. I thought about that. At 6, I didn't really know what it meant, but I felt the truth of it deep inside me. I understood that love wasn't always easy, that it was sometimes born out of struggle, out of heartbreak, out of trying again when it would be easier to give up. The light showed me something then, not like a dream, but like a living memory. I saw myself growing up. I saw me sitting by that same pond years later, watching the sunset, crying over things I didn't yet understand. I saw a woman, older me, helping a little girl who had fallen off her bike, smiling gently, and I saw moments of kindness I hadn't yet lived, all flowing from choices I hadn't yet made. The light said, you will forget this for a time. That is how life works. But it will always be inside you. And when you choose love, even when it's hard, you will remember. Tears ran down my face. Though I don't think I had a body anymore. I wanted to stay, but I also wanted to finish what I had started. I whispered, if I go back, will you still be with me? The light pulsed again, like it was smiling. Always, you are never apart from what you are made of. Then something began to pull me downward. It wasn't rough. It was gentle, like a mother's hand guiding a child home, after a long day. The figures of light around me began to fade. but not in sadness. They seemed to be smiling, sending me back with love. The last thing I felt from them wasn't words, but a feeling. You are safe. Go live. The golden glow faded into darkness. Then I felt pressure. Heavy, painful pressure on my chest, a burning in my throat. Air forcing its way back into my lungs. I was gasping, choking, coughing. The world was loud again. Birds, water, voices crying my name. I blinked against the sunlight. I was lying beside the pond, Luke kneeling over me, my mom's trembling hands on my face. She was crying and laughing, all at once. And for a second, as I looked at her, I could still see a faint glow around her, a soft white light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was the same light I'd seen up there, only dimmer, hidden beneath the surface of ordinary life. I wanted to tell her everything, but my voice was too weak, so I just whispered, "Mom." I saw the light. She pulled me close, sobbing, rocking me in her arms. And even though my body hurt, my heart was peaceful, because deep down, I knew the truth. I had come back not because I was saved, but because I had chosen to return. And somewhere in the wind, I heard the echo of that voice again. Soft, endless, full of love. Remember, Emily, every time you choose love, you come closer to home. The first thing I remember after waking up beside the pond was the sound of my mother's crying. It wasn't like the soft kind of crying people do when they're sad. It was raw, heavy, and filled with fear. Her hands were shaking as she held me, pressing her forehead against mine, whispering my name over and over like she could pull me back just by saying it enough times. My cousin Luke was standing a few feet away, his face pale and wet, his chest heaving. He kept saying, "She wasn't breathing. She wasn't breathing." I blinked up at the sky. The clouds were moving slowly, drifting past the sun. Everything felt too bright, almost unreal. The colors were sharp, the light too strong, the air too heavy. I tried to sit up, but my body felt strange, like it didn't belong to me anymore. My skin was cold, my chest hurt, and my lungs burned every time I tried to breathe. But inside, I wasn't afraid. It was like the calm I'd felt in that other place had followed me back. My mother carried me to the house. She kept saying, "You're okay, baby. You're okay," but her voice was shaking. I wanted to tell her what happened. The girl, the angel, the light, but when I opened my mouth, only a whisper came out. The words got stuck in my throat, and I just held on to her instead. It felt like I was caught between two worlds, one that hurt and one that was perfect. When we got inside, she wrapped me in a blanket and sat me on her lap by the window. I could see the pond from there, the water calm and still again, like nothing had happened. But it wasn't the same pond anymore. It looked different now, almost sacred. I could still see the shimmer of light on its surface, faint but real, and when the wind blew, I could swear I heard something soft, not quite a voice, but close, like someone whispering my name. The doctor came later that evening. He said I was lucky. He told my mother that I had swallowed a lot of water and that it was a miracle I was alive. He asked me questions, like how long I'd been underwater, what I remembered, if I'd seen anything. I just said, "It was bright." He smiled and patted my head, thinking I meant the sun, but I didn't. I meant the light, the one that had wrapped around me like love itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes. The girl's glowing face, the angel's gentle eyes, the field of light above the pond. I felt like I could still hear them, faintly, like echoes in my chest. "Be still. You are loved." Those words played over and over in my mind, like a lullaby. I should have been scared, but I wasn't. I felt safe, even in the dark. Days passed, then weeks. My family stopped talking about what happened. They acted like it had just been an accident, something we should forget. But I couldn't forget. Sometimes, when I was alone, I'd go sit by the pond. The water was calm now, reflecting the sky like a mirror. I'd sit there for hours, waiting for something I couldn't name. And sometimes, if the light hit the water just right, I'd see it, that same shimmer, that same pulse of color, like a heartbeat. It reminded me that what I saw wasn't just a dream. One evening, as I sat there, I noticed a small white feather floating on the surface. There were no birds around, no wind. It just drifted slowly, turning in gentle circles. I picked it up and held it close. The moment my fingers touched it, a calm warmth spread through me. The same kind of warmth I'd felt when the angel touched my shoulder. I smiled without knowing why. It felt like she was saying, "I'm still here." As I grew older, I didn't talk about it much. I knew people would say it was imagination, or that my brain was confused from lack of oxygen. But deep down, I knew better. What I had felt wasn't confusion. It was truth. It was more real than anything I'd ever known. And even though I was just 6, I carried that truth with me like a secret promise. Whenever life got hard, when people were mean at school, or when I felt lonely, I'd close my eyes and remember the light. It reminded me that no matter what happened, love was bigger. It was the one thing that never disappeared, even when everything else did. And somehow, I always knew the angel was right, that love was the bridge between every world. Years later, when I went back to that pond as a grown woman, I found another feather waiting on the shore. I picked it up, smiled, and whispered, "I remember." And for a second, I swear I heard her voice again. Soft, close, full of peace, she said. And I never left. The years after the drowning felt like living 2 lives at once. On the outside, I was just another little girl in a small Missouri town, going to school, helping my mom bake pies, riding my bike down the dirt road that led to the pond. But inside, I carried something bigger, something quiet and bright that I couldn't explain. It was like a secret light, tucked behind my heart, always glowing even when everything else felt dark. At first, I tried to talk about it. I told my teacher once, when I drowned, I met a glowing girl. She smiled in that polite adult way and said, "Oh honey, you must have had a dream." But it wasn't a dream. Dreams fade. This didn't. The memory stayed sharp, like it had been carved into my soul. So I stopped telling people. I learned early that some things were too sacred to share with those who didn't understand. Still, I saw signs. Little things that reminded me I wasn't imagining it. White feathers in strange places. One in my lunchbox, one stuck in my shoe after school, one floating inside the hallway at church, even though all the windows were closed. Every time I found one, I felt that same warmth, the soft, quiet knowing that I wasn't alone. And sometimes, when I'd lie in bed at night, the space between waking and sleep would blur. I'd see that field of underwater flowers and hear her voice again. Everything alive remembers love. By the time I was 12, life had changed. My parents fought often. My father started drinking more, and my mother's laughter faded into tired sighs. The house felt heavier, filled with silence that seemed to soak into the walls. But even then, when things felt dark, I'd sneak out to the pond. It had become my place. The only place that felt alive. I'd sit by the water and close my eyes, and I could almost feel that same peace from before. Sometimes, when the wind was just right, I'd swear I could hear music, soft, distant, like a lullaby carried across the sky. When I turned 16, I told my best friend Lily what happened that day. We were sitting on the porch steps, watching fireflies. I told her about the light, the angel, the choice. She didn't laugh. She just looked at me for a long time and said, "Maybe you saw heaven." And for the first time I realized that's exactly what it was. Not some faraway place with gates or clouds, but a living light, a presence that loved without end. After high school, I left Cedar Hollow to study nursing. I didn't tell anyone why I chose it, but deep down, I knew. I wanted to be close to that thin line between life and death. Not because I was obsessed, but because I had seen what waited beyond it. When patients were scared, I would hold their hands and tell them softly, "It's okay, you're loved," even when you can't see it. Sometimes, right before someone passed, I'd feel that same hum in the air, that soft vibration I'd felt underwater. It was like the light was waiting for them too. One evening, A woman I'd cared for all week grabbed my wrist. Her breathing was weak, her voice barely a whisper. She said, "I'm afraid." "What if there's nothing?" I smiled and told her, "There's something. I've seen it." Her eyes widened, just for a second, and then she exhaled, long and peaceful, and she was gone. At that moment, the room filled with warmth, not from the heater. It was that same peace, that same love that had once surrounded me. It felt like she had stepped into the light I'd seen all those years ago, and I whispered, "Welcome home." As the years passed, I became known in the hospital for being calm during emergencies. When others panicked, I stayed still. People thought I was brave, but the truth was simpler. I wasn't afraid of death. Not after knowing it wasn't the end. One night, during a thunderstorm, I drove back to Cedar Hollow. The rain came down hard, the road slick and shining under the headlights. When I reached the old pond, I parked and just sat there for a while. The rain danced on the water, each drop making a tiny circle of light. I got out of the car and walked closer. The air smelled like wet earth and memory. I whispered. I kept my promise. I came back, I learned. And then I saw it. Faint, glowing on the surface of the pond. A small figure of light, standing where I had once drowned. She looked just like I remembered. Gentle, still, smiling. My heart jumped, but I didn't feel fear. Only peace. I whispered, "You're still here." And I heard her voice, soft as wind. "I never left. You never did either. You just learned how to see again." I stood there in the rain, crying and smiling, all at once, because I knew, after all these years, the circle was complete. The light that saved me had never gone anywhere. It was in the pond, in the people I helped, in the laughter I shared, in the love I gave. It was life itself. And as I turned to leave, I noticed one last white feather floating toward me, landing right at my feet. I picked it up, held it to my heart, and said, "Thank you." It's been many years since that summer day in Cedar Hollow, the day I drowned and came back. I'm an old woman now. My hair is silver, and my hands carry stories in the lines etched across them. But that light, the one I saw beneath the water, still lives inside me. Sometimes, when I sit by the window with my tea and watch the morning sun touch the trees, I feel it stir again. It hums gently, reminding me that everything I once saw, the girl, the angel, the endless light, wasn't just meant for me. It was meant for all of us. I've spent a lifetime trying to put that feeling into words. But truthfully, it's not something words can hold. It's something you feel, like love, or forgiveness, or peace that passes understanding. Over the years, I've told my story to many people, friends, students, patients, even strangers who just needed hope. Some listened with tears in their eyes. Others smiled politely, the way adults do when they don't quite believe you. But that's okay. Faith doesn't need everyone's approval. It only needs to be lived. There were days when I questioned myself too. Was it all real? Was my mind just trying to protect me from fear, from death, from the unknown? But then I'd see it again. The small, quiet miracles that reminded me. The feather that appeared on the dashboard during a storm. The time I heard a dying man whisper, "Do you see her too?" before he smiled and let go. The warmth that filled my chest whenever someone said, "I love you," and meant it. All of those moments were little pieces of that same light. I've come to understand something important. Death isn't what we think it is. It's not the end. It's a return, a homecoming. But we don't have to die to find it. The light, the love, the peace, it's already here. It's in every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every second we choose love instead of fear. That's the secret the angel was trying to teach me when she said, "Love is the bridge between every world." We build that bridge every single day, whether we know it or not. There's one moment I think about often. Years ago, I was visiting a children's hospital to speak about near-death experiences. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8, tugged on my sleeve afterward. She said softly, "I drowned too." Her eyes were wide and innocent, but her voice was steady. She told me she'd seen a woman made of light who told her not to be afraid. And when she said that, I felt tears roll down my cheeks because I knew exactly who she meant. The same angel who had touched me was still working, comforting, guiding, loving others the way she had loved me. I hugged that little girl and whispered, "She'll never leave you either." She smiled, and for a moment I saw the light flicker in her eyes, the same glow that had once filled the pond. That's when I understood why I came back. Not just to live, but to remind others, to tell them that love never ends, even when life does. Sometimes when I'm alone at night, I still talk to her, the angel, the friend made of light. I tell her about my family, about how my children have grown, about how my grandchildren play by a pond just like the one I knew. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel her near again. Her presence is soft, gentle, and familiar. She never says much. She doesn't need to. Her silence feels like understanding. Her warmth feels like home. And every so often, I dream of the pond. In my dream, I walk into the water, unafraid. It's clear now, not muddy or dark. The surface shines like glass, reflecting the sky. The girl of light stands waiting for me, smiling, her hand outstretched. Behind her, I see the angel, her face calm and radiant, and above them, that great endless light that once called my name. When I wake, I know what it means. It's not time yet, but when it is, I won't be afraid. People ask me what death feels like. I tell them it's not death at all. It's remembering. It's the moment you realize you were never separate from love. You just forgot for a little while. And when you remember, everything makes sense again. Every joy, every pain, every tear, every laugh, all of it becomes part of the same song. A song written in light. If there's one thing I want you to know from my story, it's this: don't wait until you die to find heaven. Look for it here, now, in the faces of people you love, in the beauty of a sunrise, in the kindness of a stranger. Heaven isn't somewhere we go. It's something we remember. It's the love that never left you, waiting patiently for you to notice it again. And when the day comes for me to leave this world, I already know what I'll see. I'll see the pond, shining brighter than ever. I'll see the angel and the glowing girl waiting at the edge, and I'll hear that voice, the one that has never stopped whispering inside me, say, "Welcome home, Emily. You made it."